Hey, what's up, guys? I just want to go over a few things. Basically, it's going to be about work-life balance. Uh, right now we're we're in some difficult times. We all know this. Financially, things could be better, a lot better. Um, as far as work goes, with finances, I don't know. You, you know, for me personally, I feel like for the amount of effort and commitment and just as much as I put into my job, I just don't feel like um, I'm not compensated. Not enough. Now, I can say that because I know my self worth. I know my value, and I can only speak for me. But that's just something maybe you guys need to look at for yourself. But don't forget, we have options. You know, Now, there's a saying, the devil you know is better than the one you don't. I kind of believe it. It's true. But at the same time, it's kind of like if you leave this particular job and move to another job, that's where the devil you don't know. You might have to work harder to make more money. Um, so it comes down to what do you want to do? Do you want to stay at this particular job you're at, and deal with what you have to deal with? Or, you can always pitch the idea that I think it's about time, for some more incentives. Maybe I can get off earlier, I can come in earlier, things of that nature. So you can have some kind of balance. And it doesn't help with the financial aspect, but I believe it can help with giving you more time for yourself. Because I think that's what it comes down to. When you think about your time in commuting, your time away from your family, the hours you're at work, and then, when you see your paycheck at the end of, weekly or bi-weekly, you kind of ask yourself, is it really worth it? But at the same time, if you do present the idea of some kind of incentive or an increase in pay, make sure that, you realize your value. Because if you realize your value, then it's kind of like hopefully they realize it. And if they do, then you know what? They probably will take care of you. If they want to keep you, and that comes later if they want to keep you or not. But at least they'll get an idea that you're unhappy about something, and hopefully, they're willing to make some kind of changes to, keep you, or just to make your life a little bit easier, you know? So, you know, in my case, I just take it one day at a time. Sometimes some days are worse than others. And what I mean by that is, I'm in the customer service industry. So which means I'm constantly interacting with customers, and at the same time other staff members. And on top of that, I'm also a supervisor. So I'm constantly, dealing with quite a few, different personalities. Sometimes it can be difficult, but even when it does become difficult, the only thing I try to keep in mind is be kind, be considerate, be open-minded, and just understand that some people are going through things. So I keep that in the forefront when I'm communicating with the customers or with my other staff. And, I'm always there to pitch a hand. So, I'm giving, but once again, I'm not too giving to where I'm just not, keeping anything for myself. Because, like I said, self is really important. So, like I said, that's where I'm at with the work, I'm not enjoying it. It's not the worst job, but you know what? It pays the bills. It keeps food on my table, gives me a place to live, can make my car payment and whatnot. At the end of the day, can I do better? Yes. Can we all do better? Yes. It's going to take effort. It's going to take work. In areas of our life where we don't feel like we're achieving what we desire in life, you really have to take some time, sit down, figure it out, and look for a direction. And I knew there's one girl, she told me once, she said, in order to achieve something in life, you're going to have to give up something. And at the time, I really didn't understand what she meant. I'm like, give up something? What do you mean, give up? And then, we talked again, and she said, well, what I meant by that was, you have to sacrifice something. You either have to sacrifice time, money, and possibly sometime your family. And at the time, it didn't quite resonate. But over time, it did. It really did. Because if you're trying to get to a certain level in life, you might have to sacrifice a few things, like it was stated. So, I used to drive trucks. And, and at that time, I was sacrificing, my family time. The money, to me, it wasn't worth it. The amount of hours I was away from home, potential health hazards, it wasn't worth it. And I couldn't make it work. Not for driving for 10 and a half hours and then, you got to take a reset and then turn around and drive some more. And the amount of pressures that's on you to deliver that load safely when, a few times they'll give it to you late. They'll just literally, know that you're maybe 2 hours, 3 hours away and give it to you and say, well, you have to have it there in 10 hours. Impossible. My clock is already running. I started, drove 2-3 hours to get it, loaded me up, another hour maybe. That only gives me, like 6 hours. And that's just for driving. So, yeah, that's why, I didn't like the trucking. That didn't work. So that was, something I was sacrificing, time with my wife, time away from my family, and when I put a value on it, it just wasn't there. It wasn't there. So, I got out the truck. And, I like to travel. I like to experience the world. We work hard, and you should be able to take time off with your family or, even sometime by yourself, but to take time to travel and see the sights, see the country, see the world. I couldn't do that. In the truck, I couldn't do that. I was passing through states. Most of the time was on back roads, like what's behind me, but I didn't get to pull into towns and, in cities and venture around and check museums and, different things that's going on. Nope. It was drop the load, pick the load, hit the road. That's all it was. And that just, like I said, it just didn't work for me. So, if I'm putting that many hours in and then, when I do get home time, it's kind of like, okay, you get 2-3 days. Time to hit the road again. The money wasn't there. So, I left that industry. I still have my license, but I left that industry. So, to bring it all back around, your self-worth is very important. You have to know what you're worth and make sure you're being compensated, for your worth. But you also have to be committed to the job. Showing up late, kind of coming in there and doing the bare minimum, someone is paying you for a service. It's kind of like if you go to Starbucks. You go in there and you say, I want a coffee, and they're like, well, what kind do you want? They give it to you, and it's like watered down, and you're like, wait a minute, this is not what I normally get. You know, you're paying them for the service of providing you coffee, so you expect that coffee to be just as the way that you told them you wanted to make it. So if you wanted it strong or light or whatever, that's how you expect it. You don't expect it to be watered down with less flavor than what you asked for. So if you're going to go into these industries and be, in the service industry, kind of put some serious effort into it, because someone is paying you for your time and your effort and commitment. And we're people. We got to do our best. We got to do better. Just try to do better anyway. I mean, I'm no different. I try every day. I really do. I try to be a better person than I was yesterday. Do I accomplish that? I hope so. It's no way to measure it, but I just know that I try to be as kind as I can and understanding and patient. And I think that's what society needs more of. I'm not saying that you're not doing any of those. I'm just saying that that's all I'm trying to do, and be a little more caring, So we'll pick this up.
Then, here, fam. Anyway.
So what's up, y'all? Thought I'd come back and just talk to you once again. Pick up where I left off earlier. So let's talk about something real quick. Right now, I think I talked about it. Things are a mess. Things are definitely a mess. But you got to hold it together. I don't want nobody, crashing out, getting hooked on, narcotics and all that. It's not necessary. It's really not. I mean, I used to smoke a lot of weed, so I know. But you want to have a clear mind. You want to make clear decisions. You want them to be your decisions. You don't want to be under the influence making decisions because they're not coming from the right place. You're going to have ups and downs. I think I mentioned that. And those ups and downs are trials. This is only from my experience. They're just trials. And those trials will make you a better person. When you come out the other side and you realize, man, that was a rough time. I believe that, that's what this life is about. Trials and tribulations. Now, they're not easy. They're not easy at all. And I don't think they're meant to be easy. Because here's a fact. If you think about it, and I mean really give this some thought, before you was conceived, and that's went into the egg, but before it went into the egg, remember, it was thousands of siblings running with you, and you were the one that was strong enough to actually make it to the finish line, to be in this world. So we all kind of chose to be here, because one of your siblings, you could have stepped to the side and and what I'm saying is, we're going to have trials and tribulations. They're going to come. They're not going to stop coming, but they're going to come. Some will be small things, some will be big things, some will be financial things, some will be health things, some will be family matters, losing family members that was really close to you. I can relate. I even have one of my parents, my dad right now is in the hospital. I don't think he's coming out. He's a strong-willed man. He's been through the military, but he's in his 70s, late 70s. And, these bodies we have, they're not meant to, they're not here forever. They're not. They're not made to function forever. So, like I said, I don't want people crashing out. This is not the time. You got to hold it together. I know it's tough. I know it's tough. I mean, I wake up every day and I miss my mom. She used to call me at least once a day. I mean, I was only son, but when you lose a parent, me, I believe that they're still with you in spirit, but they're not here with you in the physical. And they love you. They love you, just like you love them. They're gone in the physical, but not in the mental. And spiritually, they only want the best for you. Just like I only want the best for you. I want the best for myself. I want the best for everybody. That's why, I try to be as kind as I can to people. I try not to put myself in situations that could lead me into other situations. And I try to avoid people that are in situations that can get me in situations. So I say that to say, if you lost a parent, I can relate. And they're still with you, but, in spirit, in your thoughts, and you just got to keep the fight going. Do you have another option? Yeah, but do you want to take that? Because there's still people in your family that love you, that need you, that want you. They want you to be here. Sometimes I'm ready to crash out. But I know I have too many people that love me and need me. And it won't be good. It won't be good. And I'm not a selfish person. And see, that's a selfish act. You throw it all to the wind because you can't manage. But that's where communication comes in. That's where sharing comes in. And, in all honesty, that's when you should really get out and do something for somebody else, And you're not doing it for anything in return, because there is no return to it. But it's just to make you, it makes you feel better. It does. Even me, myself, I need to do more. We always can do more. And just like getting on here is not easy for me, and sharing this stuff, but I think it needs to be said. I think a lot more needs to be said. We all need to just be kind to ourselves and kind to other people. And, walk lightly. It's a rough road. Put your shoes on. Walk it. Do your best. Walk straight. Be kind. Peace.